As the afternoon turned into evening on Coruscant, Anakin Skywalker entered the office of the Supreme Chancellor to deliver the news that Obi-Wan Kenobi had engaged General Grievous. He was tired, having gone without sleep the prior night for fear of the ominous dreams that had been plaguing him, and his mind was in turmoil, fearful for the lives of those he cared about. But he remained somewhat optimistic. After all, the Republic was about to win the Clone Wars and the Jedi Council was close to catching Darth Sidious. Things seemed to be looking up. Little did he know that, in a little over 24 hours, the Republic would cease to exist, the Jedi Order would be dead, and he would be a Sith Lord named Darth Vader. This is the full story of those 24 hours, the day the Republic died.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
Technically speaking, the day the Republic died was the 23rd day of the 5th month of 19 BBY, the 16th of the 5th of the 23rd in the date system in use at the time. Our story actually begins the night before, on the 16th of the 5th of the 22nd, 2 days after the end of the Battle of Coruscant. Across the galaxy, the Clone Wars were drawing to a close. With the end of the Battle of Coruscant, thousands of new Star Destroyers from Palpatine's secret fleet and millions of new clones bred on Centax II entered service, giving the Grand Army of the Republic the reinforcements it needed to launch a massive counteroffensive against the CIS. In particular, separatist holdings around Yagdul, which had been stripped of nearly all their resources for the Battle of Coruscant, were quickly conquered by the Ascendant Republic. Other separatist strongholds seemed poised to follow suit. By the day's end, Republic forces on Cato Nemoidia and New Plimto were mopping up the last pockets of separatist resistance in the core. On Megiddo and Felucia, two of the three worlds that the Republic had focused on capturing during the sieges, the Republic finally had the advantage, and the GAR had already captured the third world, Seleucami, where mop-up operations were underway. On Acheron, Tula, Garki, Tel'Nareg, Mokana, Delalt, Mandalore, Auto, and Ragmar 5, the Republic was making significant headway in what would prove to be some of the final battles of the Clone Wars. The arrival of Yoda with reinforcements on Kashyyyk was beginning to turn the tides of that crucial battle, and earlier that day, Obi-Wan Kenobi had begun the Battle of Utapau. As Anakin entered Palpatine's office late that afternoon, Obi-Wan Kenobi was about to kill General Grievous, and Yoda was helping repulse the Separatist assault on the city of Kakarot with a battle meditation. Everything seemingly was going well, but Anakin's meeting with Palpatine that evening proved the truth couldn't have been more different, for it was then that Palpatine revealed his true identity as Darth Sidious to the young Jedi Knight. Torn over whether or not to kill him, Anakin rushed back to the Jedi Temple and promptly informed Mace Windu. Windu was devastated by the news and fearful for the Republic, but he was ready for action nonetheless. The Jedi Council had been expecting Sidious to make his move, and Windu already had Aegon Kolar, Saesee Tiin and Kit Fisto on standby to assist if he did. After quickly consulting Yoda, they boarded a gunship and headed to the Senate Executive Annex, stormed Palpatine's office, and declared their intention to arrest him. Anakin, meanwhile, was told to remain in the Jedi Council chamber until the Master's return. He was still torn over his earlier decision, and he feared for the life of his wife, Padme Amidala, who he believed could be saved from an impending death in childbirth through arts only Sidious knew. As the sun set on Coruscant, he looked out across the galactic city toward 500 Republica, where Padme was sitting alone in her apartment. As their thoughts drifted toward each other, both could feel their shared bond in the Force. For a moment, the galaxy stood still. Then, Anakin turned away and left the council chamber, knowing what he had to do. In response to Windu's threats, Palpatine revealed that he was not only Sidious, but the Senate as well, and then leapt into action. He quickly murdered Aegon Kolar with a surprise attack and struck down Saesee Tiin before the other Jedi realized what had happened. Windu and Kit Fisto tried to fight back, but Sidious's sudden onslaught had caught them off guard, and the Sith Lord managed to kill Kit Fisto as well. But Mace Windu, the Jedi Order's greatest duelist, would not be so easily defeated. Sidious had killed the other Jedi Masters through surprise, but now that effect had worn off, and he found himself badly outmatched. Windu's Vapid technique channeled all the dark energy Sidious was pouring into the battle and hurled it right back at the Sith Lord. He led Sidious back to the officer's large window, which he then destroyed to break Sidious's focus. The tactic worked, and in a matter of moments, Windu had the Dark Lord of the Sith at his mercy. As Anakin Skywalker entered, Sidious desperately tried to avoid death by blasting Windu with the lightning, only for Vapid to hurl the lightning right back at him. Victorious, Windu moved to kill Palpatine, only to be stopped by Skywalker. Skywalker severed Windu's lightsaber hand as he went in for the kill, allowing Sidious to blast the Jedi Master out the window to his death. Still in shock, Skywalker gave in to the Sith Lord, submitting to Sidious as his new apprentice. He was given the name Darth Vader and sent back to the Jedi Temple to begin the next stage of the Sith Grand Plan. At the same time, Sidious sat back and sent a brief message to every commander in the GAR. When Windu, Fisto, Tin, and Kolar set off to battle Darth Sidious, the Jedi Masters left at the Jedi Temple gathered together in meditation, hoping to get a feel for what was going on. When Skywalker gave in to the dark side, they felt it and knew immediately that something horrible had happened. As Shak Ti tried to get a better feel for what was going on, the others put the temple on lockdown. Shortly afterwards, Gatemaster Jarok saw Skywalker approaching and rushed out to meet the young Jedi Knight. He only had a few moments to notice the thousands of clones marching up the temple steps before he became the first victim of Operation Nightfall. As Order 66 was being issued, there were about 10,000 Jedi spread across the galaxy. A half hour later, there were less than 200. The Jedi had walked into the trap laid for them by the Sith. Instead of being mostly gathered in the temple or in Coruscant, they were scattered across the galaxy on remote worlds. War itself dulled the senses of Jedi, and wariness dulled them even more. They were vulnerable and alone, surrounded only by their clone soldiers. Soldiers that, after 3 years of fighting, they had come to trust with their lives. That was a mistake. At once, all over the galaxy, clones turned on their Jedi generals. On some worlds, like Garki and Seleucami, Jedi who had won their battles and thought the danger had passed, learned that the real danger had been behind them the whole time. On Mygeeto, Felucia, Cato Nemoidia, Orto, and the other last battlefields of the Clone Wars, Jedi charged against columns of droids only for their own men to shoot them down. A handful of Jedi, such as Yoda on Kashyyyk, Kenobi on Utapau, Ahsoka Tano on her Star Destroyer, and Dash on New Plimto, managed to survive the onslaught. Most weren't so lucky. On Coruscant, Darth Vader and the 501st Legion stormed the Jedi Temple in a mission called Operation Nightfall, killing everyone inside and setting the place ablaze. Many of those Jedi fell not to the clones but to the man they had called the Chosen One, including quite a few younglings. That fateful night saw chaos on a galactic scale. Operation Nightfall resulted in Coruscant being placed under martial law, leading many Coruscanti to once more fear for their lives. Aboard a Star Destroyer bound from Mandalore, an unsuccessful bid to kill Ahsoka Tano resulted in the release of Maul, who ultimately escaped Republic justice. On dozens of worlds, most notably Kashyyyk, the sudden execution of Order 66 caused the Republic to lose ground to the Confederacy. But that setback was irrelevant. The Confederacy was on the verge of collapse, and the Jedi, the last defenders of the Republic, were dead. Something new was rising to replace them both. A new day was dawning on Coruscant. Incidentally, the last day for 26 years that it would be named Coruscant and not Imperial Center. The planet was still under martial law, but some important figures were making their way to work anyway, among them Bail Organa. Then, Organa noticed that the Jedi Temple was on fire, and he broke from his commute to check it out. He was denied entry to the temple, but he caught sight of a group of clones killing Padawan Zet Jukasa anyway, and managed to escape the scene with his life. He promptly contacted Ramus Antilles, the captain of his consular ship, the Tantive III, and ordered him to prepare for takeoff. As Organa made his way to the starport, his men stole a Jedi homing beacon from the Sharp Spiral, the personal craft of the late Saesee Tiin. When Organa arrived, the Tantive III took off to search for Jedi survivors. The 16th of the 5th of the 23rd, technically speaking, was the actual last day of the Republic, but ironically enough, it was a quiet one. Shortly before Organa set off, Darth Vader paid Padme a quick visit before setting his fighter on a course for Mustafar. On Kashyyyk, Fateful and Chewbacca stealthily led Yoda to an escape pod, while Obi-Wan Kenobi slowly made his way to the Soulless One, the starfighter of the late General Grievous. The few other Jedi left in the universe tried to get their bearings, hiding from their own troops on remote worlds. On a remote moon, Ahsoka and Rex were burying the remains of their former comrades, who had betrayed them even as the ship they were on crashed. But for most of the galaxy, the day was uneventful. On some level, the galaxy knew what was going to come next, and it was holding its breath. It was the calm before the storm. At this time, roughly an hour before Darth Vader arrived on Mustafar, the Clone Wars officially ended. At Darth Sidious's behest, Newt Gunray issued a shutdown command to the armies of the CIS, believing that the war had been won. He couldn't have been more wrong. All over the galaxy, the Grand Army of the Republic moved in, sweeping away the last remnants of the Confederacy and laying claim to most of the remaining Separatist worlds. Above Kashyyyk, the Tantive 3 picked up Yoda's escape pod, and then it picked up the Soulless One, as Obi-Wan fled from Utapau. Organa wasn't able to locate any other Jedi survivors, and the two Masters were left to conclude that they were the last Jedi left in the galaxy. Mourning for their fallen comrades, they resolved to return to the temple on Coruscant. As the afternoon turned into evening once more on Coruscant, Kenobi and Yoda stormed the Jedi Temple, cutting down clones they had once called their friends. In the nearby Senate building, Bail Organa rushed to join Padme at her pod, late for the extraordinary session that Palpatine had called earlier that day. On Mustafar, Darth Vader came in for a landing and marched unopposed into the Separatist Council's last stronghold. They welcomed him with open arms, only to recoil with horror when they finally saw his face. Horrified, Yoda and Kenobi discovered that the clones hadn't been alone in the attack on the Jedi Temple, as many of the dead had been killed by a lightsaber. In the now abandoned Jedi archives, they discovered the terrible truth. Anakin was responsible. Resolved to stop the Sith, the Jedi split up, with Kenobi going to stop Vader and Yoda going to stop Sidious. But they were too late. The Sith had already won. The Republic had already spent years slowly taking on a new form, and the Jedi Order had been the last thing standing in the way of its fall. Now the Jedi were dead, and the Sith were about to drive the final nails into the coffin. On Mustafar, Vader was already slaughtering the last leaders of the Confederacy, morbidly enjoying their screams and cries for mercy. In the Senate, Sidious was giving a rousing speech, declaring the Clone Wars to be over. In one moment, Vader killed Newt Gunray, who he had deliberately saved for last. In the next, Sidious declared himself Emperor. On opposite ends of the galaxy, the Sith literally and figuratively killed democracy. The Republic was dead, and an empire now stood upon its corpse.